Smoke shrouded the bay where wildfire still hissed beneath a crust of cooling jade, and the sunrise found kings landing silent in defeat. The wall of Stannis Baratheon's galleys, charred, cracked, yet victorious, rode low on the Blackwater, their decks littered with wounded men who had lived through green fire and screaming iron. Ropes creaked, lanterns guttered, crows settled greedily on blood-stained rails. Among them, Davos Seaworth stood barefoot and empty-handed, his shattered fingers twitching when the tide slapped the hull. He tasted salt and ash and the faintest ember of triumph. No ringing of bells greeted the dawn, no roar of victory from the city's defenders. The gate of the Muddy Way gaped open like a torn wound in the curtain wall, left so by the ram of Storm's End men in the gray hours before first light. Its portcullis had snapped, chains drooping like the entrails of a gutted stag. Through that yawning breach, Stannis spearmen poured in disciplined silence. Shields locked, seamed faces grim beneath copper-rimmed helms. They moved as a single tide, washing over thin knots of Lannister archers, who cast down broken bows and begged for mercy. The king himself rode behind the first rank, a tall shape in battered crimson surcoat, black beard clotted with sweat. His warhorse stepped over the dead as if they were rocks in a pasture. On the ramparts, Lord Gunser Sunglass planted the fiery heart banner, and a ragged wind unfurled it above the city, red silk on stark yellow, sigil of a god few in King's Landing dared to name. It fluttered opposite the empty post where lions had once snarled. Watching, Davos felt the old harbor pilings under his soles, and remembered a younger night. Robert's War, when such sigils meant freedom. But today the Onion Knight tasted only iron on his tongue, and wondered whether victory that came drenched in wildfire could ever be called righteous. Tyrion Lannister awoke in a cavern of pain that throbbed behind his right eye. When he tried to lift a hand to his face, iron bit his wrists, not chains, but cunning cuffs fitted for dwarfish bones. The taste of blood pooled on his palate. He smelled wet wool, damp straw, horse dung, and the faint spice of smoke. A tent, then, a prisoner's tent, pitched on the city's own cobbles. He blinked, and shapes resolved. A sliver of morning sun slanting through a flap. A pair of mailed guards flanking the entrance. The pale glow of a brazier guttering low on coals. Memories returned in shards. The river, aflame. The boom of the chain released too late. The green wall blossoming over hulls. Bronze curses. Then, Sir Mandon Moore's pale blade slicing the world apart, white as moonlight, and Podrick yelling his name while the water swallowed them both. Now, he was on land again, and no longer the defender, but the spoils. Footsteps whispered outside. The guards stiffened. In stepped a gaunt priestess robed in scarlet, copper hair blazing against the gloom. Tyrion had never met Melisandre of Asshai, yet her eyes kindled with amusements older than Valyria. She studied him like one might study a book whose ending she already knew. "Lord Hand," she said, voice soft as embers. "The night was dark and full of terrors, yet your fires burned out. The Lord of Light kept his own." Tyrion tried to smile. It tugged the bruises at his jaw. "Spare me riddles. Tell me instead how many of my ships you melted." "No." "Enough," she answered, "that the river runs black with ash." Her gaze traveled to the manacles. "His Grace will speak with you once the city is secured. And if I decline the privilege, you may refuse a king," she allowed, "but not a god. One will answer through the other." She turned to leave. Tyrion summoned every shard of gall left inside him. "Red woman." She paused. "The wildfire you tasted, that was my doing. Remember that while you prattle of true gods." She smiled then, a slow bloom. "I remember. You tried to conjure hell. Instead you fed the flames of our Allor. We thank you." Then Sol. When she vanished, the tent seemed colder. Tyrion laughed once, bitterly, until pain choked the sound. Outside the Red Keep the courtyard hummed with the brittle quiet of men too weary to cheer. Sir Axel Florin marshaled companies to every gate, reading proclamations in a cracked herald's voice. Stannis Baratheon, by right of Robert, by right of conquest, now sat the Iron Throne. Citizens who bent knee before dusk would be spared. Those who hid lions beneath beds would face a righteous fire. Sir Adam Marbrand, Lord of Ashemark, was dragged forth in chains while his banner knight wept. A dozen gold cloaks knelt with him, striped in blood and dust. Stannis dismounted beside the great stair, eyes flint sharp beneath his battered helm. A hush fell. One could hear gulls screeching far downriver. The false spring sun shone through drifting smoke, and in that gray half-light, Stannis' shadow stretched long over the marble. "You wore a lion," he said to Marbrand, "but served a bastard boy who murders his king and lies of birth. Swear now, to the true king." Bex. Marbrand, face streaked with soot and grief, raised a jaw still proud. "I swore to Joffrey Baratheon, son of Robert." A mailed fist cut the words. Marbrand spat red. Stannis did not seem moved. "Robert's son? Open your eyes. Hair the color of gold, eyes of malice. He bears no seed of mine or my brother's. Varys has confessed the incest beneath the crown." The spider, robed in brown, watched from steps nearby, as quiet as dust. He had indeed confessed, though whether under duress or design, none could tell. His whispered revelations about queen and brother, about bastards smothered in cradles, had scuttled across the camp like rats, sounding more poison in a single night than wildfire had spilled in the river. "Swear," Stannis repeated, "or die." Marbrand laughed once. "A Lannister dies but kneels to none, save his own pride." "So be it." Stannis drew Lightbringer. Its steel glowed only with ruddy sun, yet men stepped back as though it burned. With one stroke, Marbrand's head rolled upon the pale marble. Blood coursed into the stone's ancient veins. The gulls fell silent. Davos, standing near the base of the stair, felt a shudder ripple the line of onlookers, and in that moment knew the city was theirs, not by their cheers, but by their terror. Sansa Stark listened from a window embrasure in Maegor's Holdfast, breath a thin wisp in the cold. The queen's apartments behind her lay abandoned, strewn with gowns, jewels, and an overturned wine flagon. Cersei Lannister had fled in the night with Sir Lancel, slipping down hidden passages toward the river before the chain had risen. Rumor said the Hand's daughter Myrcella took ship for Dorne days ago. Tommen was still within the keep weeping, but Sansa had seen no sign of Joffrey. Below, Stannis soldiers thronged the inner ward, standard poles stabbing the sky. Swordsmen of the Rainwood clashed helms with men of the Stormlands. Sell sails from Lys lounged by the wells, chattering in lilting tongues. The city's red cloaks, those who had not fled, were herded into a tight square. Every face she saw looked older, tired, changed. King's Landing had always crackled with danger, a foxden disguised as a court. Now the foxes lay broken, and wolves, strange wolves, prowled the halls. When a hand touched her shoulder, she nearly screamed. It was Sandor Clegane, burns livid across his cheek, eyes rimmed red. Yet in those black pits, she glimpsed something almost kind. He handed her a bread heel without a word. She took it, fingers trembling. "They'll seek you soon," he muttered. "Stark blood's a lantern now. All dark corridors lead to Winterfell." "What will you do?" she whispered. "Drink." He shrugged. "Fight if there's fighting. Run if there's fire. I'm done with kings." "Imagine no." Sansa watched him lumber down the passage until shadow swallowed him whole. The afternoon saw Tyrion hauled before the Iron Throne under a pall of hush, thick as velvet. Guards lined the columns. Cracked marble still bore scorch marks from the riot weeks earlier. Shadows of falling banners flickered across the walls as wind whistled through high shutters torn in the assault. On the dais sat Stannis, armored still, crown newly forged but plain. A circlet of unadorned steel. Faded Tyrell roses trodden underfoot gave off bruised perfume where Renly's knights had died trying to cut through the chain. Tyrion's wrists bled where iron bit. They shoved him to his knees, cruelly mindful of his height, so he stared directly at the throne's blade-spiked base. How many men ever knelt in service, he wondered, and how many in surrender? His father might have answered, but Lord Tywin was gone. Some said riding from Harrenhal, others fleeing west in secret. Ser Tyrion. Stannis began, voice like whetted stone. "Why did you turn your father's chain on your own fleet?" The question startled him. "To win, to burn you, your grace." Murmurs rustled among lords and priests. Stannis nodded once, as though verifying sums. "You fight fiercely for your blood. Yet your blood is false." He gestured. A parchment was read aloud. Names of bastards, names of lovers. The old story that Jaime wed his sister's bed. Tyrion listened, heart numbed by the recitation, yet a spark of black humor grew. Of course the crown had defended was counterfeit. The joke was his life entire. When the reader finished, Stannis leaned forward. "You stand in rebellion against your rightful liege. Your sister will answer to the gods." He did not look toward the Red Woman, but everyone else did. "Yet you, Tyrion, may still be of use." "Use?" Tyrion echoed. "A dwarf always finds himself a tool." "What function, pray, does your grace imagine for me? Court fool, counter, doorstop?" An twitch bent Stannis' lips, almost a smile. "You will bend the knee. You will name me king. Then you will oversee the vaults you once kept for your nephew. King's Landing rots in debt. I require a steward who counts as fiercely as he schemes. Then, and if I refuse, then you will hang for treason. If the rope snaps, you shall burn or drown. I am not choosy so long as justice stands served." Tyrion pictured flames, pictured Pycelle's drooling gloat, pictured his father's cold eyes at Casterly Rock. Bend or die. He thought of Shay, somewhere in the city, hidden perhaps, or taken. He thought of Podrick trembling above a pier, sword slick with river water. His mind raced through odds, plots, poisons. All seemed pale facing the simplicity of hanging. Slowly, painfully, Tyrion Lannister bowed forward until his head brushed the cold stone. "Your grace," he said, clear though it cost him pride. "I yield. I acknowledge your right." His voice cracked. He swallowed shattered pride like broken glass. "Long live King Stannis of House Baratheon." In the echoing throne room, that declaration rang like the thud of a final coffin lid. Stannis rose. Lightbringer lifted. "Rise, Lord Tyrion, sworn servant of the realm. Fail me, and fire will claim more than ships." Tyrion stood. No fetters were removed. They needed no iron stronger than oaths. In that moment he knew he had bartered the last scrap of his soul for breath. And breath, he had learned, was a miser's coin. Yet somewhere in the gloom he sensed a truth. A man with nothing left might dare anything. And daring, after all, was the craft of imps. Dusk-cloaked kings landing in bruise-colored light. Fires smoldered in Flea Bottom, writhing like serpents through garbage alleys where rioters had looted during the chaos. Stannis justiciars rode patrols to beat water with mailed hooves, damping order with mailed hooves. Arlor's priests lit pyres at crossroads, preaching deliverance in tongues of flame. From the septs rose muted fury. Sparrows whispered of idols and false gods, sharpening knives on altar stones. Yet the common folk did not rise. They had no strength left. They watched, hollow-eyed, as a new banner climbed the high mast of the Tower of the Hand, the crowned stag within a fiery heart. Inside the tower, Tyrion paced a circular chamber hastily granted him. The furniture was sparse. Accounts scrolls already piled knee-high upon a trestle. Gold cloaks, loyal now to someone else, stood outside his door. He flexed his wrists where manacles had been removed, feeling phantom weight. On the desk lay 2 ledgers, one from Littlefinger's archives, the other newly penned by iron-fisted clerks of the Stormlands. Together, they revealed a treasury as hollow as a smith's anvil after the bell clapper is removed. Debts to Braavos. Debts to Highgarden. Debts to the Casterlys who now held 1,000 hostages for ransom in their name. He poured watered wine, sipped, gagged at the sourness. Somewhere beneath the tower, a woman's scream cut short. Justice, fire, or simple cruelty? He could not tell. He set quill to parchment. "I require information on crown revenues," he wrote, then scratched it out. "No. Better. Your Grace, To mend the realm we must first cease its bleeding. Caution dash. God. Too supplicant. He hurled the quill aside. What mattered quills? Gold, debt, when dragons rose in the east, and Robb Stark held the neck, and Balon Greyjoy prowled the sunset sea. Stannis would need more than coin. He would need alliances. And Tyrion Lannister, for all his chains, still knew how to buy loyalty with secrets. If he could not save himself by gold, he would use words sharper than wildfire. A knock. Davos Seaworth entered, removing his cracked helm. Lines of exhaustion ran like river deltas from the corners of his eyes. "Lord Tyrion," he greeted, voice careful. "The king sends me to see you provisioned. You'll want your comfort, I reckon, after a day on your knees." Tyrion barked a laugh. "My comfort sailed north with the last honest ship. But sit, Sir Davos. Unless you plan to slit my throat." Davos sat. His stump knuckles drummed once on wood. "You fought bravely at the river," he said. "Many good men burned. So did my sons." Silence pooled. Tyrion lifted his cup. "I am sorry," he said, and meant it. Davos nodded, accepting neither apology nor blame. "The king is not loved here," he murmured. "Your city fears him. They fear the Red Woman more. Fear breeds knives." "Yes," Tyrion agreed. "And a wise man keeps knives at his back, not in it." He studied Davos. "Help me keep him wise." The smuggler's eyes tightened. "My king listens only to truth. That is why men fear him. Truth is seldom gentle." "Neto so." "And yet," Tyrion replied softly, "gentler than fire." They spoke until the moon hung over the city like a pale coin. Candles wept tallow. Outside, bells, restored to their places, tolled softly for those lost upon the river. Each peal echoed across tiles slick with soot, across hollow temples, across the yawning dark mouth of the Blackwater, where ships' skeletons still groaned beneath sluggish water. Somewhere in that silence, Tyrion felt the first crack in the new king's armor. The weight of ashes. Ashes had a way of clinging. Far to the west, word rode swift wings and swifter horses. At Casterly Rock, Lord Tywin smashed a decanter against the hearth as the Raven's report laid out his son in chains and his daughter fled. "Storm's End usurper," he hissed, knuckles bone-white. Kevan stood silent beside him while sparks skittered across the marble, hissing like insects in winter. "At least the city stands," Kevan offered. Tywin's gold-green eyes cut him. "Stands? No. It answers to Stannis. Worse, it kneels. And now he holds the dwarf, who knows every coin Hollard and Heddle ever borrowed from us. Baratheon will bleed us through the purse and win the other kingdoms with our gold." "Min nisats to know," Kevan mulled. "Renly's allies may desert him yet." The Reach bent knee to Margaery's claim. "They have no love for Stannis or his foreign priests. Yet they love coin more than pride." Tywin paced. "We will need alliances of our own. The North, perhaps. The young wolf." Kevan raised a brow. "Hate killed your grandson at River Run." Tywin smiled thin as a knife. "Every wolf can be taught to hunt different game, if you bait the snare with honor." Elsewhere, ravens winged beyond sea and mountain. In River Run, Edmure Tully read of King's Landing's fall with horror. In Old Town, the Hightower's maester set quill to parchment for Highgarden. Above them all flew the whisper of a new order. Stannis victorious, Lannisters fallen, dragons still dreamt across the narrow sea. Board shifted, pieces scattered. And in the east, a queen of fire listened to her own counsel, and saw in commit bright dreams that the iron men of Westeros played with candles in a hurricane. Stannis Baratheon walked the walls alone at dawn. Lightbringer sheathed. Below him the city smoldered, but smoke thinned. Ships from Duskendale ferried grain. Smiths hammered salvage into new shields. Children began again to chase one another through crooked lanes. He watched a pair of washerwomen pin crimson banners over lion-torn cloth. The sea wind tugged at his cloak. Alone, he could almost believe in peace. Footsteps. Melisandre emerged, the rising sun behind her, casting her shadow vast. "The fire shows many paths," she said without greeting. "But every path ends at one gate. Your destiny is forged, your grace. You have taken the city the flames foretold." "And?" Stannis asked. "What do the flames tell of tomorrow?" She smiled that distant smile. "Half sorrow, half hunger. Tomorrow rides on a dwarf's choices, on a maid's tears, on a sword reforged of red and black. Shadows stir in the north, and a king crowned in snow calls banners of dead men." Stannis stared eastward, where the sky blushed over the dark ripples of the Blackwater. "We march soon," he said. "First river run, then the north. I'll break every oath to win back law. But the cost is coin to be spent," Melisandre said. "Spend your heart in the name of the Lord of Light, and you shall never know poverty again." He turned away. "I hear only the screams my fire birthed." "They were offerings," she whispered. "The darkness beyond the wall grows. It feeds on fear and false kings. You, Stannis, are the sword in the night." Stannis' jaw tightened. "So I must war on all fronts. Men in south, ghosts in north, illusions in fires. Very well. Tell your god I will be his soldier, but only if victory serves justice." She bowed. "Lor's justice is victory." Left alone, the king ran gloved fingers along the parapet's scorched stone. He felt its roughness, saw where masonry had blistered under the heat of 1,000 jars of wildfire. Justice, he mused, was as mutable as stone in fire. It might crack, shift, or harden, yet so long as it endured, men might build upon it anew. He would be the fire that tempered, not destroyed. Or so he told himself, as dawn broke red over a realm no longer certain of its own sunrise. In the Tower of the Hand, Tyrion dipped quill again. Words spilled, coiling like snakes around each other. "My brother Jaime yet rides. Perhaps he would trade captives for peace. Release him, and you gain the Riverlands without siege." He froze, quill hovering. Betray Jaime? Surely Jaime would kill him for less. Yet the realm, no, Stannis' realm, could consolidate quickly with such barter. He scratched the line out. Time enough for treachery, after wounds scabbed. Another thought. Offer Sansa Stark safe, return northward. The young wolf may parley, easing two fronts to one. He paused, picturing the girl's pale gaze at Joffrey's humiliations, picturing her relief if set free. That might be mercy enough to balance at least one scale within his soul. Footsteps again. This time, a small shadow slipped in. Shay. Hair unbound, eyes wide with terror, closed the door softly behind her. "They said you were dead," she whispered. Tyrion's breath left him. He crossed to her, cupped her cheek with trembling fingers. "Not yet," he managed. "They will kill me," she said. "The Queen's men. There is no queen here." He forced a grin. "Only kings and whores and fools." He kissed her rough. "I shall be all three for you, sweetling, but you must hide. The Red Woman smells secrets like meat." She nodded. Silent tears. He pressed her to the wall, as though his body could shield her from gods. Outside, bells rang noon. Stannis received new lords. Davos argued grain tariffs. Melisandre burned leeches in a brazier shaped like a heart. Across the Seven Kingdoms, ravens took flight. And in that storm-tossed day, the first stones were laid of a future none in Westeros could yet imagine, a future forged in ashes, bound by oaths murmured through split lips, dripping red with wildfire's lingering kiss. Iwa, cow. Wind trailed blue-gray fingers along the scorched tiles of the great Sept's forecourt, teasing motes of ash into eddies that drifted like ghost fish above the flagstones. Tyrion stood beneath a cracked archway watching workmen chip away the melted bronze of the Queen's Gate, each blow ringing through the silent morning like a chime out of tune. The master masons spoke in low Valeman drawls, arguing how best to brace the fractured pillars. One suggested tearing them down entirely and casting fresh marble in the Dornish style, thin and elegant. Another spat on his boots, claiming the city's bones should remain Lannister stout. None noticed the dwarf with dust-speckled hair, though his doublet bore the Baratheon stag twisting inside a red heart. He stayed only until the priests arrived. 7 of them in star-white robes trimmed with rough wool. At their head walked Septon Baldric, a square man with grease-shined jowls. The sight of Baratheon banners fluttering from lintels pinched his mouth into a bloodless line. But when he bowed to Tyrion, the motion was perfect. Spine bent so low ash cascaded from his sleeves. Tyrion inclined his head in return and departed before the Septon could test the new king's tolerance with sermons. Across Visenia's hill, the streets lay strangely still, watchful. Every shutter cracked enough for one wary eye. Word of Lord Marbrand's beheading had run through cobbled veins. The corpse was still hanging from the Red Keep's outer gate, a crown of rusted nails hammered into his brow. Stannis had set the body there as a lesson, an iron law taught in rust and gore. The small folk were dutiful pupils. No riots swelled, no stones clattered from rooftops, no children sang bawdy verses of the Queen Regent's proclivities. Silence reigned, enforced by memory of wildfire and the heavy tread of Stormlander boots. Yet Tyrion sensed the city's pulse beneath the hush. Fear, anger, hope, hunger. The old usual mix, only turned inward made secret. King's Landing would not remain quiet long. He made note of shortcuts and refuse heaps, stables where red-haired washer Tom still held sway, hidden doors bricked since Maegor's reign. In a week he thought he might know the city better than the gold cloaks, who these days wore black stag badges on their cloaks to show new fealty. He crossed the Rosby Gate into the outer yards of the Guildhall of Alchemists. Green stains still painted the paving stones. Inside, long halls reeked of char and brimstone. Glass globes glimmered, catching torchlight on their gluish contents. Halline the pyromancer emerged from a side passage, robes clutched high to avoid sticky puddles. His smile froze when he spied Tyrion's attendants. 4 Storm's End spears, grim under mantled helms. "Lord Tyrion," Halline stammered, wiping sweat from his brow. "We grieve your misfortunes. You warned us of the river fire, none heeded." Tyrion glanced at a cracked cask seeping pale fluid. No one heeds a fool until he juggles axes. Halline's chuckle died unborn. "How may the ancient noble guild serve your lordship?" "By confessing," Tyrion said, stepping closer. "How many jars remain?" Halline relaxed, pleased at the predictable question. "We have accounted for every vessel. 417 intact. 40 cracked, 63 purified for safety. The remainder expended gloriously in defense of the realm." "Defense?" Tyrion echoed. "Half the galleys you burned flew a Baratheon crown." The pyromancer shifted from foot to foot. "The substance does not see sigils, my lord. It only burns title." Tyrion studied him. "That it does. And one day it may burn King's Landing again, unless its makers obey their new king. You will deliver all current stock to the Tower of the Hand by sunset. No more wildfire shall remain in these vaults." "Bund." Hallie's eyes bulged. "But the cellars will be sealed," Tyrion finished. "If any spark remains after sealing, may R'hllor feed on your bones. His grace has a peculiar reverence for flame." The dwarf smiled thinly. "Do not test it." The pyromancer bowed until his spine creaked. "As his lordship commands." When Tyrion turned to leave, one of the Stormlanders muttered, "Fire to fight fire. Empty wisdom." Tyrion pretended not to hear. He had begun to learn the cadence of obedience set to grudging drums. Outside the city walls, Davos stood at a makeshift wharf supervising salvage. Planks, sails, spars, even half-charred mast. Anything still afloat after the wildfire inferno was hauled ashore. Crabs skittered through tarry puddles. Gulls screamed. Davos counted each length with methodical care, noting which might be shaped into spear shafts or siege ladders. The Blackwater's tide left bright green scum along the shore that no man dared touch. A raven circled thrice and landed on a stump by Davos' elbow. The bird cocked its head, beak glinting. A thin scar feathered the Onion Knight's cheek, acquired while rescuing sailors whose flesh blistered jade under the burning sea. He ignored bloodstains crusting his sleeve. The stink of rot clung to him like a cloak. Stefan's voice lived only in memory now, a hoarse whisper whenever Davos closed his eyes at night. "Father, the sky's on fire." Mathos' voice lingered beside it, The Lord of Light tests us. Tests, Davos decided, could rot in 7 hells. He wanted sons, not lessons. A dock clerk approached with a rough list scratched on birch bark. "Sir," the boy said, "the 12th barge is sunk near the chain tower. Divers can't free her cargo." "Leave it," Davos said. "Lives fetch higher price than lumber." The boy hesitated. "The divers volunteer." Davos weighed mercy against need. 2 hours, he relented. "If she doesn't rise by dusk, torch her, and pray currents carry the embers north." When the boy ran off, Davos closed his remaining fingers around the smooth haft of a tally stick and stared across the water's dull sheen toward Dragonstone rising slate dark on the horizon. He missed its basalt halls, the hush of stone drum corridors. Yet Stannis had decreed the island hold only a skeleton garrison now. All men of consequence must serve in the capital. Serve, or rot in cells. Davos served. Rotting could wait. He felt footsteps at his back and turned to find Melisandre gliding along the slipway barefoot, robes trailing through blackened sand without staining. She breathed deep, the smoke-tainted air, as though it were myrrh. "They sift the ashes hoping to build castles," Davos said. "Ashes birth phoenixes," she replied. "All creation rises from fire." "And children," he murmured. "Do sons rise from fire?" Her eyes flared. "Your sons were offered. The Lord receives what is given freely." "Freely?" His throat rasped with salt-stung rage kept banked behind grief. "My lads never knelt to your God. They died screaming in wildfire, not of their choosing." Melisandre's smile carried sorrow and certainty in equal measure. "The king's cause demanded sacrifice. The night ahead is darker than any river, Sir Davos. You will see." She lifted one hand over the water, fingers casting shadow like talon shapes. "Only Stannis' flame guides the realm. Follow or perish blind." He wanted to curse her, wanted to drive her into the surf until green brine swallowed her lantern eyes. But Stannis had bid him peace, and for Stannis, he would endure. Without another word, he returned counting salvage. When he next looked, the Red Woman had vanished. Evening settled thick as coal dust over the city. In Flea Bottom, the bakeries reopened blank-eyed kilns, selling twist loaves for thrice the former copper. Beggars spent the city's dusk, singing dirges of the burned bay. Each refrain ended on a hush whenever a Baratheon patrol clanked past. Erlos flickering pyres speckled the streets. Crimson-robed acolytes intoned prayers that sounded more like threats. Sansa Stark found herself guided into the Tower of the Hand by a steward in rough spun. Tyrion had sent for her, or rather, for Lady Sansa of Winterfell, daughter to Eddard. Hostage to the crown, she wore a dull brown gown she had pieced together from one of Cersei's cast-offs. The embroidered lions had been ripped away, but faint golden outlines still marked the cloth like scars. Inside the Hand's solar, Tyrion rose from behind a desk buried under scrolls and wooden trays of coinage. His smile betrayed exhaustion but no cruelty. "My lady," he gestured her to a stool. "Would that I could offer lemon cakes. The imports have grown complicated." "It is kind enough to summon me," Sansa answered, folding hands to still their shaking. She had not slept the night before, waking again and again beneath visions of wildfire rending ships apart, of screams that clung to rafters like dripping moss. Tyrion poured watered wine for them both. "I shall not pretend courtesy is habitual amongst my kin. You have been wronged, grievously so. My family holds your sister, your brother Bran may be dead, rumors vary, and your betrothed commanded men who would have slit your father's throat twice if they found more blades. I cannot erase such ledger marks, but I might offer you home." Sansa's breath caught. "Home? A northern maid belongs north," Tyrion said, swirling his cup. "The king would negotiate with Robb Stark. He needs breathing room to the south, and a Stark's pledge could bridle Greyjoy raiders. A trade, then. Freedom for peace. And what must I do? Nothing beyond what honor already demands. Bear witness you were wronged by Joffrey the False. Swear no further claim upon the Iron Throne. Robb declares for Stannis, and you ride for Winterfell under guard." Tyrion paused. "This is the honey. Now the sting. If Robb refuses, your fate reverts to royal war. Stannis is sterner than steel. He will keep you prisoner rather than let you inflame the north as queen. Nentar, Sansa considered. The tower's candles fluttered under an errant draught. She thought of mother's arms, of snow in Winterfell's godswood, soft as feathers, of Robb's sure laugh. She thought too of deep wells where secrets drowned. King's Landing was one such well. Leave now before its dark water closed above her. I will speak the truth, she said. If Robb sends for me, I will go. Tyrion nodded. Then let us hope your brother continues listening to counsel wiser than his rage. Outside the solar, Podrick Payne shuffled parchments with quiet urgency. Tyrion dismissed the boy late, gifting him a silver stag from his dwindling purse. Pod lingered at the door. And Lord, I heard the gold cloaks mutter. They say Stormlanders plan to melt the Red Keep gates and recast them with a heart crowned in flame. An ugly sigil, Tyrion mused. But cheaper than rebuilding of bronze lions. We operate on thrift now. Pod frowned. Will people fight when they see the lions gone? They will look to their purses first. When purses empty, they will look to their bellies. Then they will fight. Pod swallowed. That seems soon. Aye, Tyrion said. So we must fill purses quicker than bellies. When the door closed, he sagged into his chair. Quills scratched arguments to the iron bank of Braavos. Columns of figures marched like doomed soldiers. He drafted letters promising repayment in stag-minted silver drawn from fresh mines in the Stormlands. A lie, for no new mines existed yet. He promised toll rights along the Roserad to Hightower caravans, a half-truth, since Stannis had not accepted Tyrell homage. He promised Tyroshi traders crown-backed bonds redeemable in Volantis, barely a fantasy. In short, he promised winds in casks. Midnight tolled. He sealed each parchment with brown wax bearing the stag heart. The sight of that device still jarred him. But he pressed the stamp firm. Impressions mattered. His candle guttered low when Shay slipped in, barefoot, hair braided tight per his instruction, the simpler to hide beneath a laundress's cap should soldiers barge in. Tyrion drew her into his lap. She pressed her cheek to his, breathing warmth into the chill his bones had worn all day. I missed you, she whispered. Then we share a foolish habit. Your men talk, Shay said. They say Stannis will burn the great sept at first light. They say every god but his must bend or break. Tyrion stroked her braid. Men talk. Kings decide. This king still needs allies who believe in the Seven. I'll speak with him come dawn. You think he listens? A wry smile. He listens like a stone listens to the sea. Slow wearing, but eventually even granite yields. Shay traced the scar on his brow, eyes glimmering. Just don't get yourself ground to sand first. He kissed her, tasting anxiety sweet as poppy syrup. For that night, he allowed himself to forget flame and debt, and the city slept beneath the weight of new banners and old fears. When dawn came, a frost so faint it seemed imaginary crusted the bronze of the muddy way portcullis. Soldiers breathed steam as they formed ranks for the king's progress to the sept. Stannis had agreed, grudgingly, to meet the High Septon in council rather than torch idols outright. The compromise owed much to Davos' counsel, more to Tyrion's threat that burning a sept before minting new coin would throttle trade for a generation. R'hllor's priests sulked but obeyed. Tyrion rode a shaggy brown gelding beside Davos. The smuggler wore plain gray, a single pouch at his belt containing onions, salt, and a leather-bound copy of the Seven-Pointed Star. To remind the king of promises older than crowns, he murmured when Tyrion arched a brow. Halfway up Vicinia's hill they encountered a crowd gathering around 3 flayed corpses nailed to the gate of a wine merchant's manse. The bodies were sailors, Stormlander by garb, eyes pecked hollow. Someone had painted a wolf's head in blood across their bellies and pinned a dog pelt to each brow. Bolton work, Davos said grimly. The bastard of the Dreadfort ranges south again. Tyrion's gut tightened. A message for Stannis? Or Lannister? Message for anyone breathing, Davos answered. Stannis said nothing when he saw the corpses. His eyes hardened, cheeks drawing gaunt. but he ordered them cut down and given silent burial, forbidding priestly flames. Some in the escort murmured at that contradiction. Tyrion marked their names: Sir Clayton Suggs, Sir Hubard Rompton, Lord Caron's youngest. Men who spoke questions behind gauntlets might one day raise swords. Inside the sept, pillars soared into scented gloom. Pale morning light spilled through shards of broken window, glazing the floor with shards of red, blue, and gold. The High Septon shuffled forward, draped in patched brocade, ringed by a choir of novices chanting prayers to the Mother for mercy, to the warrior for calm. Stannis advanced alone down the cracked aisle, spurs clinking. When he halted before the altar, his voice carried like an axe blow. "You serve your seven. Serve them. I serve the realm. Let each keep to charter." The High Septon lifted trembling hands. "Your grace, the realm, and the seven are one." Stannis' jaw flexed. "Not while half the realm worships false heirs." Behind him, Melisandre glided, eyes aglow in the stained glass light. A hush settled, thick as smoke. Even the novices' hymn faltered. Tyrion measured the air and stepped across the silence. "Your grace," he addressed Stannis, "the crown's coffers thirst. Pilgrims bring coin. Destroy their holiest house and their purses follow their fear to Old Town, to Gulltown, to Bravos. I have prepared ledgers." Stannis did not look back. Coin weighs less than judgment, yet aligns more men. Tyrion offered the High Septon a half-bow. "Your Holiness, the king proposes no harm to the Seven's true worship, only to those who cloak incest beneath gilded idols." The priest's gaze darted between them. Then, "The Septi shall stand." "That depends," Stannis said, "on whether your voice shouts my right from every pulpit in Westeros." It was barter naked and brutal, and the High Septon understood. He bowed, pressing his lips to the warrior's sword pommel. In that kiss lay acknowledgement of new order. After, Stannis strode from the sept with strides like hammerfalls. Outside, shadows of the corpses already darkened the cobbles. Tyrion sighed. One conflagration spared, a dozen spark elsewhere. Davos tucked the seven-pointed star back into his pouch. "Better to douse sparks than graves." Tyrion snorted. "Graves rarely riot, Sir Davos." The Onion Knight shot him a sidelong glance. "You've never met a Seaworth widow." They shared a thin, weary humor. Ahead, across the rooftops, plumes of smoke coiled above the street of steel. A forge fire perhaps, or worse. In King's Landing, distinction blurred. In Riverrun Solar, Catelyn Stark read the Raven Scroll thrice. Each reading left her breath shorter. Stannis victorious, Sansa alive. Terms for alliance. Robb paced the rushes, gray wind of anger swirling in every stride. "They dangle my sister like bait," he growled. "Where's Stannis? Break with Renly's old foes, abandon Karstark revenge? And for what? A daughter home?" Catelyn folded the scroll. "For Sansa's life, Robb, and perhaps for peace." "Peace." He stopped before the hearth where the trout banner drooped half-singed. "Peace died when we crossed the neck." She reached him, resting a hand on his tunic. "A king may win, by sword or vow. Which leaves fewer graves?" Robb studied her, seeing in her eyes the graves already dug. Ned now Winterfell burning rumors by Raven Wing. Lads dead at Oxcross. Uncles vanished along green fork currents. He exhaled hard. Gray wind echoed the breath with a low whine. "We must answer," Robb said at last. "But not bend." "To what?" Catelyn closed her eyes. "Then answer wisely. Wolves do not hunt alone." 2 nights later, ravens beat furious wings against red dusk pouring over the stormlands. Word reached the King's Council that Balon Greyjoy had seized Deepwood Motte and claimed the title King of the Isles and the North. Tyrell outriders reported Tywin Lannister's host had turned west, mustering at the Golden Tooth. The Dornish sent silent envoys seeking audience. Everywhere, banners shifted like wheat before a gale. Tyrion sat beside a hearth in the Maiden Vault, poring over a rough-sketched map where ink lions sprawled across the Westerlands. Kraken symbols knifed the north. Red hearts dripped flame upon the crownlands. Dots of candle wax marked castles owing coin or loyalty. Dried wine traced proposed trade lanes. He moved a wax drop from Golden Grove to the tumblestone and watched it slide before the heat melted its shape. Soft footsteps announced, "Sansa." She carried parchment. "A letter from my brother," she said. "He asks proof I am safe." Tyrion accepted it. Robb Stark's handwriting strode across the page like a ranger's gait. Firm, tall, sparse. He read quickly. The young wolf would parley 3 leagues north of the Blackwater, under oak whose heart face once guided first men. Prisoner exchange, hostages, no red woman present. Stannis would balk. Tyrion knew the king's pride, yet also his hunger for legitimacy. Robb's sword made North and Riverlands tremble. Bend him, and half the realm followed. Proof of safety, the letter demanded. Proof. Tyrion's gaze fell on Sansa Ty. "I ride to the parley," she said, steady, "he will trust." "Dangerous road," he warned. Every crofter squat could hide quarrels. Her chin lifted. "Winterfell's daughter knows courage. Let me see him." He admired her poise. A year's torment had forged steel within porcelain. "Very well. I will speak with the king." That night he found Stannis in Maegor's holdfast solar overlooking the moonlit bay. Melisandre sat in shadow, eyes reflecting hearthfire like rubies. Stannis greeted Tyrion with curt nod before returning to a carved box on the table, its lid inlaid with storm wrack. He lifted out 3 soot-clouded leeches, each swollen dark. "Lord Tyrion," Stannis said, voice low, "name me 3 betrayers." Tyrion blinked. "Betrayers? Those whose deaths deliver victory." He hesitated. "A trap?" Melisandre watched, lips parted like scarlet petals. Tyrion weighed defiance against survival. "Tywin Lannister," he said at last. "Balon Greyjoy. And Joffrey Baratheon, though the boy may already be dead for all I know." Stannis nodded. Melisandre lifted 1 leech pinched between iron tongs, whispering. She cast it into the brazier. Smoke hissed. "Tywin," Stannis declared. The second followed. "Balon." The third, "Joffrey." The flames crackled. Sparks carving red scribbles up the chimney flew. Tyrion felt a chill worming between ribs. Coincidence or sorcery he could not say, but men named thus might soon meet blades or storms or accidents. He cleared his throat. "Your Grace, the young wolf, proposes parley. He seeks his sister." Stannis' gaze flicked from coals to dwarf. "Parley buys him time. Time he'll spend hunting Lannisters," Tyrion said. "Let him. Every lion he slays is one less roaring at our door." The king considered. "No red priest?" He forbade her. "Let Davos ride as witness." Stannis' brow furrowed. "And you?" "I will remain. The city still bleeds into my coffers. Leave me to stitch." "Oh no." Melisandre's voice flowed like warm night water. "The Stark boy wields old gods, cold gods. He fears my light. Barring me is admission of weakness." Stannis glanced away, jaw tense. "Perhaps. Yet light may blind allies as quick as foes. Davos will suffice. Tell Stark we accept." Tyrion bowed. Outside in the corridor he exhaled hard, palm pressed to his chest where heart hammered. Whether leeches birth doom or not, fate now cracked its knuckles across Westeros. He felt strangely alive. A man with no safe harbor might as well dance on the deck while storms raged. 3 days later, dawn spilled over a fog-drowned meadow north of the Blackwater, painting the river mist rose gold. Oak branches arched overhead, gnarled like ancient claws. Beneath them Robb Stark waited astride a gray courser, gray wind pacing circles close by. 500 paces distant, Davos Seaworth dismounted, offering an open-handed gesture. 20 paces behind him, a banner of the fiery heart hung limp. No Melisandre, no longbowmen, only the Onion Knight and 12 Stormlander men-at-arms. Robb rode forward alone, save the direwolf at heel. At 20 paces, Tyrion's courier halted. A freckled squire named Bennett, bearing a white staff. Robb halted opposite. "Is Sansa Stark safe?" Robb's breath steamed. Bennett produced a small cloth packet, unfolded it. Inside lay a braid of auburn hair bound in blue ribbon, and a ring of polished ironwood carved with a running wolf. Robb recognized both. Tokens exchanged in childhood games beneath Winterfell's ancient towers. His throat tightened. "She lives," Bennett said. "Treated as guest and guarantee. And terms? Homage to King Stannis. Return of all captives. 10,000 river troops, half Ryman Frey's hostages. And the young wolf's oath to march when called against the lions." Robb's laugh was bitter. "An oath already sworn when we smashed Stafford Lannister. What returns? His Grace promises the crown will recognize northern independence once the false lions fall." Robb studied the squire's earnest eyes. "Independence after war ends, promises blow like banners. I need parchment, seals, and hostages of his blood." Bennett bowed. "I shall bear your demand." Gray wind, bared teeth. Bennett flinched but held ground. Robb wheeled his horse and cantered back through swirling mist. Behind him the river whispered secrets of wildfire and ruin. Night found Tyrion hunched in the tower's library with scrolls from the iron mines of Tarth. The candle guttered over a ledger where debt spread faster than rabbits. Shay slept on the cushioned bench, curls spilling. When the door creaked, he tensed. Yet it was only Davos, cloak damp from fog, eyes red with cold and worry. "He refuses open fealty, but offers truce," Davos reported. Voice hoarse. "Demands parchment signed and sealed." Tyrion steepled fingers. "Stannis may sign 10 parchments if it buys swords. Will he honor them? Kings honor what fear demands. If we crush Tywin and Balon before turning north, we may never need test the promise." Davos ran a hand over bristle-rough chin. "I sailed smuggler's routes half my life. Promises break on reefs yet charted. The boy wants hostages." "Hostages," Tyrion echoed. "His Grace has a daughter in Dragonstone." The smuggler bristled. "Princess Shireen is innocent. Innocent and precious," Tyrion said softly. "Such is hostage value." Davos' glare could have sliced rope. "I will not counsel offering her." Tyrion raised palms. "Nor I. Merely speaking logistics. Perhaps other collateral. Gold ships, grain shipments, command of dairy." Davos exhaled. "Write the offer by dawn. I'll place it in Stark's hand." When he left, Tyrion rubbed temples. Each solution birthed 2 perils. If Balon struck south, Tywin attacked Riverlands, Greyjoy raids strangled grain, while Starks withheld full fealty. Meanwhile, dragons hatched across the narrow sea. He half laughed, half groaned. The realm balanced on the edge of a dagger shorter than his own nose. He dipped quill. Words flowed, terms, clauses, sureties, mutual defense, release schedules. At margin's end he wrote, "In good faith, and with sight toward dawn rather than dusk." He sanded the parchment, sealed it with brown wax, pressing the stag sigil deep. Then, almost as afterthought, he dripped a bead of jade-green wax from a hidden vial formed of melted wildfire glass. When it cooled, the green bead gleamed like dragon eye beside the stag, a reminder that history sometimes burned bright enough to blind. Cersei Lannister rode south disguised as a Dornish septa named Isabel, hood shadowing her once glorious hair, now hacked short by trembling Lancel's knife. They traveled by night along goat paths hugging the coast, skirting watchfires. Lancel's wound, an arrow scored his flank during river retreat, festered. At Maidenpool he could ride no further. Cersei left him in a flea-bitten hostelry with 2 coins and a kiss that tasted of contempt. She pressed on with a single guard, a sellsword of old Volantis who swore the long lashes oath for double pay. His eyes lingered on her curves, even through the septa's grays. But lust could be guided. She promised him a night of queenly gratitude once they reached Duskendale. He quickened their pace thereafter. Every hamlet bore whispers. Stannis landslide, Imp rules treasury, Highgarden hedging bets, Casterly Rock bristling with gold. Each rumor stabbed like a brand. but none cut as deep as the tavern minstrel who sang of 3 leeches cast in fire by a king without mercy: Tywin the Golden, Balon the Black, Joffrey the Cruel. The bard claimed the first leech already writhed in dying throes. Cersei flung coin to hush him, then slit his throat behind the stable. Yet the song echoed still, feeding her nightmares. When dawn washed silver over the waters of Crackclaw Point, Cersei's party sails to the east, sails that bore lion pennants snapping in brisk salt wind. Her heart soared. Father's host! She spurred her mare down the beach, waving a kerchief torn from her hem. But as they neared, she saw the lion's gold shone dulled, and beneath it fluttered a black hood. Ironborn. The kraken and the lion entwined. Before she could wheel away, longboats beached with thudding keels. Greyjoy reavers poured out, mail dark with sea spray, axes raised. Cersei's sellsword tried to bar them. An axe split his skull like ripe melon. She screamed, turning, but heavy arms seized her. Salt wind ripped the septa's hood away, golden hair spilling bright despite the crude cut. A tall raider laughed. A lioness cub lost from pride. They dragged her aboard a longship christened Sea Stone Mall. Chains closed on her wrists. As the oars bit water, Cersei Lannister watched the coast recede, fury boiling hotter than any wildfire. Balon might crave ransom, might carve pride. Regardless, she vowed, the Kraken would drown upon red waves once Lannisters regained their fangs. At Casterly Rock, Tywin received Raven ink still damp from sea spray. His daughter taken, destination Pike. He crushed the scroll in a fist already mottled with bruises of exerted will. Send ravens to every cape between the Mander and Fair Isle, he roared at Maester Crelin. 10,000 golden dragons for word of her course, 20,000 to the man who frees her. Kevan kept silent until servants fled. Balon holds her, if the report be true. He will trade queen for crown. Tywin's glare flared. No kraken crowns itself while I breathe. Kevan studied the map. Then breathe long, brother, or drown the coast in gold. Tywin's hand closed on the fire's mantle. He felt suddenly the heat of leeches and braziers far away. A superstitious fancy, unbecoming of a Lannister. Yet when he looked at his knuckles, swarthy sparks seemed dance across skin, unmarked by flame. Coincidence, he told himself. Coincidence. And still the fire crackled laugh-like in the grate. Weeks rolled, measured not by bells but by ravens and fresh pyres. Stannis granted the faith tax exemption in return for public sermons, naming him sole rightful king, and coin trickled from fearful merchants eager not to anger the warriors' swords. Tyrion floated crown bonds in Bravos, using Littlefinger's old channels. Interest rates bit like cold, but silver arrived in harbormaster vaults nonetheless. Robb Stark, still mistrustful, agreed to send 2,000 riders south under Galbart Glover's command as token of goodwill while final treaties were scribed. Davos guided the convoy through Bogfox trails to bypass Lannister scouts. On the march he and Galbart formed quiet camaraderie born of mutual grief. Melisandre remained in the city stirring unease. Each night flames in her chambers whispered futures. Some guards claimed they saw shadows crawl along corridor walls, coalescing into hooked shapes before slipping beneath door gaps. Others whispered of infants born still after glimpsing the Red Woman at dusk. Tyrion listened, catalogued, and kept 2 crossbows loaded by his pillow. One morning, an eclipse darkened the sun, even as summer peaked. The moon's shadow swept across Westeros, casting daylight into ashen gloom. In the courtyard of the Red Keep, Melisandre stood arms wide, chanting. Stannis stared skyward, Lightbringer raised. Tyrion felt gooseflesh creep his neck. Shay clutched his arm until light returned. That same hour, a raven from the west brought tidings. Tywin's outriders ambushed by stone-throwing peasants near Ashmark. The Lord of the Rock thrown from horse, leg shattered. He lived, but only by hairbreadth. Tyrion recalled the brazier and the leech named Tywin. Coincidence again? Another raven from the Iron Islands told of Balon's flight to sea in Stormgale. His flagship foundered on jagged rocks of Picus Coast. The Kraken King lost to waves. Some said swept overboard. Others claimed murdered by own brother. Tyrion pictured second leech hissing in brazier. And in the dungeons below the Red Keep, rumor breathed that Joffrey's corpse, recovered from beneath collapsed tower, showed neither wound nor scorch, yet lips were black as tar as though poisoned by unseen sting. Third Leech. 3 betrayals. Prophecy or plot, the realm shifted under Tyrion's feet like a deck in high swell. The day Stannis signed the Pact of Riverrun, sating northern self-rule once the realm united. Rain hammered kings landing in silver lances. Tyrion stood beside the king in the hall of lamprey pie, quill poised. Robb's envoys waited with wax ready. The ink refused to dry on the parchment, smearing with every signature until names blurred into pools. Superstitious scribes muttered the gods' rejected union. Melisandre's smile suggested otherwise. Perhaps the gods had accepted, and blood price already paid. When the final seal cooled, trumpets blew across the court. Stormlanders raised cheers. Northerners answered with hard war cries rolled into polite applause. Tyrion exhaled relief. Trade at last might flow freely north and south, plugging his bleeding coffers. But even as attendants cleared benches, a gaunt raven crashed through high windows, scattering glass. It landed on the throne's arm, croaking. A scroll, water blurred, dangled from its leg. A hush claimed the hall as Melisandre plucked it free and handed it to Stannis. He read, lips tightening. "What tidings?" Davos asked, dread thick in his salt rough voice. Stannis' answer echoed like doom. Daenerys Targaryen has crossed the narrow sea, with 3 dragons grown to war size. She sails for Dorne. Manchandi. The hall erupted, voices clashing, chairs scraping stone, panic and disbelief tumbling in waves. Tyrion's mind raced. Dragons, real and tearing talon spires from dream into fire. He remembered Wildfire's green kiss and shuddered, thought of how pale that seemed beside red dragon flame. Stannis turned slowly. "The game changes," he said, words deliberate as hammer strikes. "Yet rule remains. Only rightful blood may claim the Iron Throne. The dragon's mistress is daughter of the king I overthrew. She will bend or burn." Melisandre's eyes gleamed. "Roar-forged dragons in ancient fire. Their heat shall temper your sword, your grace." Tyrion doubted whether any sword, even Lightbringer, could parry wings of living flame. But he bowed nonetheless. "Then, let us forge alliances quicker than dragons fly." That night he climbed the tower's highest balcony. Rain had ceased, leaving air clear as crystal. The moon bright on Blackwater surface now scoured clean of wreckage. He drank from a skin of arbor red, and let the wine warm fear into courage. Below, braziers on the walls of the Red Keep spelled patterns, patrol signals, shift changes, secret codes. He had memorized, half in case he needed escape. Shay lay asleep inside but uneasy. Nightmares rode her breath. He wished he could grant safer harbor than stone high above restless city. A shape moved beside chimney, the hound, cloak soaked, eyes like midnight lamplight. He leaned on broadsword watching Tyrion over knuckles swollen from brawls. "Little king's dead," Sandor growled. "Little queen captured. Whole realm turning. Need a dog." Tyrion sipped wine. "Dogs fetch bones. Bones scarce these days." "Libinastor. Plenty bones in graveyards you're making." Hound wiped rain from brow. "I'll guard the girl Stark. You'll pay. And your loyalty costs double." Tyrion considered. A dire hound guarding a wolf maid. There was poetry there. Grim though it be. "Agreed," he said, extending hand. Hound gripped it. Rough skin sanding Tyrion's soft palm. As Sandor stalked away into shadows, Tyrion looked eastward. Far beyond sight, dragon wings beat over wine-dark sea. He pictured scales catching moon, flames searing clouds, a queen's silver-gold hair whipping in salt wind. Perhaps she dreamed of revenge and red dawns. Perhaps she dreamed only of home. Westeros had many claimants but one throne. And Tyrion Lannister, ex-hand, ex-prisoner, now master of coin to a hard king, stood precarious amid them all. The wind shifted, carrying the faint odor of smoke from distant pyres, mixed with the promise of rain yet to fall. He inhaled deeply and let the breath out slow, as though exorcising a ghost lodged in his ribs. When he spoke, it was to the night itself. 5 hours yet till dawn, he murmured. Let us see how many kings can dance before the sun rises. The darkness made no answer, only wrapped him closer, like a velvet cloak stitched with sparks of ugly, beautiful fire. Night unfurled over Blackwater Bay like a vast, salt-stained cloak, its edges snagged on the spikes of the red keep, and the broken masts still littering the strand. Torches flickered along the ramparts, reflected in the water as twin snakes of trembling gold. In the Tower of the Hand, Tyrion Lannister pressed a seal to the last of 3 leather-bound missives. One for Braavos, one for Sunspear, one for Highgarden. Then shoved his chair back and limped to the window. A cool wind slid in, heavy with kelp and the faint musk of charred pitch. He counted silently. 1 heartbeat, 2, 3, waiting for the disquiet that came each hour or so. A vague sense of standing on a hull already holed beneath the waterline. Tonight that dread prowled slower, padded by exhaustion. The treasury remained perilous, but Braavosi bankers had swallowed his baited bonds. Grain from the Reach now entered by wagon train escorted by newly minted Staghard outriders. And the High Septon's sermons naming Stannis the Lord's Chosen echoed from Old Town to Galltown. For the first time since Blackwater, Tyrion permitted himself a sliver of quiet pride. Happing broke the hush. Knuckles on oak. He sighed. Enter. Sandor Clegane ducked his scarred head through the frame. The firelight behind him threw jagged shadows over his burn-puckered cheek, giving the illusion of fresh wounds. Wolf girls dreaming loud again, he said, voice roughened by cheap ale. Wakes, half the corridor. Tyrion rubbed temples. Sansa has seen corpses enough to populate 3 graveyards. Her dreams are owed a little noise. Tell that to the king's new kennel masters. They keep hounds leashed outside her door because she shrieks of lions stalking her bed. Let them. Tyrion retrieved a bottle, poured 2 cups. Have a drink, Sandor. You were once a hound among lions. You can interpret nightmare bark better than the rest of us. Menda. Clegane accepted the cup without thanks, drained it in 1 swallow. She wants word of Winterfell. So do I, Tyrion murmured. Ravens vanish north of Moat Cailin. And now Balon's death looses kraken tentacles across the coast. The seas churn more letters than birds. Clegane grunted, poured himself another. Dragon soul roast every bloody bird soon enough. Saw one once across the sea. Little thing in a pit. This queen's beasts. Bigger, they say. Numta 1 2. 8 teased someone enjoys bonfires. Tyrion forced a smile. The Red Woman's priests claim dragons prove their god's favor. Sandor snorted. They'll see how favored they feel with wings darkening their prayer fires. He set the cup down. I'll sit outside the girl's chamber, ease her mind. Thank you, Tyrion said quietly. Words that seemed to puzzle the hound more than any order. He lumbered out, cloak swaying. Left alone, Tyrion warmed his hands over the brazier, stared at the coals, wondered if somewhere afar Melisandre whispered more names into flame. Tywin and Balon lay bruised by fate already. Joffrey was gone, his body discovered beneath a collapsed stairwell by workmen salvaging marble. 3 deaths. 3 betrayals answered by fire. Yet the realm remained unstill, as though the gods had tasted blood and found it only whetted their appetite. He considered writing Shay another letter instructing her to keep low, but discarded the thought. Words on parchment traveled more dangerously than footsteps in moonlight. Instead, he doused lanterns, took up his dagger, and walked the corridors to where she slept, just to be certain. Dawn breached the walls of Dragonstone in a slow tide of amber. Smoke rose from chimneys, carrying tang of cedar mixed with seaweed, a scent Sir Imry Florent always associated with fasting days. He crossed the courtyard toward the stone drum, passing smiths hammering damaged helms salvaged from the bay, until he found Maester Pylos awaiting him beneath a gargoyle shaped like a coiled wyvern. Ravens? Imry asked. Pylos extended a scroll sealed with black wax. From the citadel, white ravens fly at noon. Winter is declared. Imry exhaled. The north will tighten around itself, and the wall will look south for coin. Which we haven't, Imry muttered, tucking the scroll beneath his arm. Yet another debt for Lord Tyrion to juggle. Pylos adjusted his chain. A greater worry than coin rides the narrow sea. Imri frowned. The girl with dragons. She is no girl anymore, Pylos said softly. Reports from Mar say her beast's wings beat the height of wrathful galleys. Sailors swear their breath turned waves to steam. Mandai. Tall tales feed on fear. Sometimes fear feeds on fact, Pylos countered. Imri left the maester to his ravens and mounted steps spiraling within the stone drum. Prince Shireen's high voice floated down the stairwell as she recited sums for Sir Axel Florent, lessons before breakfast. The child's numbers sang of copper coins and parchment ink, unconcerned with dragons or northern winters. He knocked lightly. Axel's booming response granted entry. Shireen looked up, grayscale mask of stone-gray patches framing eyes bright with concentration. "Good morrow, cousin Imri." "Princess." He bowed. "I require your arms master for counsel. Debts of figures, not coins." Axel ruffled Shireen's brittle hair, took his ledger, and followed. They met Lord Valerian in the war room. Charts unrolled across the table. Shoal depths, drift tides, islands crowned by swirling arrows. "The Sea of Dorne grows crowded," Valerian said without reading. A swan ship out of Lice reports 3 black galleys with crimson sails shadowing them 2 days before sunset. 2 vanished in storm, but the Lessene captain swears the prows bore dragonheads wrought of bronze. "Nadatinda." "Queen Daenerys," Axel guessed. "Or Volantine sell sails claiming her livery," Valerian allowed. "Yet my blood inclines to the rumor. Red wine spies in Volantis confirm a fleet provisioning in haste, grain, chains, butchered goats." "Goats?" Imri frowned. "Food for beasts." Valerian tapped the parchment. "Dragons." Silence pressed like deep sea water. Axel cleared his throat. "We have 30 ships at Dragonstone. Half still scorched. The royal fleet at Blackwater repairs under Davos' eyes. Against dragon fire. Ships are tinder," Valerian finished. Imri lifted a brass weight, set it upon the map by stepstones. "We need alliances on the water. The Arbor, Storm's End's reavers, even Braavosi cogs. And we must pray dragons fear sailors' crossbows." "Dragons fear little that bleeds," Valerian murmured. 200 leagues westward, Casterly Rock's forges shrieked with ironwork. Tywin watched sparks arc like fireflies caged in darkness, illuminating his cane and the splints binding his shattered leg. The healers urged bed rest. Tywin urged them from the room with curses. Maester Crelin arrived, pale, clutching fresh scrolls. "Updates, my lord. Gold mines at Castamere report flooding. Laborers ignore orders to resume digging until their sons returned from war. The Fennels refuse levy unless recompensed for burned fields." Tywin's injured leg throbbed. He gripped the chair arm until knuckles blanched. "Compensate them then. Promise double. Promise Lannisport itself if they ride." Crelin hesitated. "Funds exist." Tywin curled his lip. "Lannisters spend coin, so it returns in tripled measures." Crelin passed another scroll. "Word from Pike. Queen Cersei remains captive aboard Victarion Greyjoy's flagship Iron Glory. They sail south along the coast. Rumor claims they head for Old Town." "Bah! Old Town?" Tywin narrowed eyes. "Why?" "A show of power," Crelin guessed. "The Greyjoys hope to demand recognition from the Citadel, or threaten it." Tywin's gaze drifted to a map where thin lines traced Kraken raids. "Send ravens to Old Town. 10,000 dragons to any sellsword who scuttles that flagship." He rubbed his thigh, pain flaring. "And dispatch Sir Adam Marbrandt's cousins. Loose hounds with torches along every ironborn foothold. Burn their villages. Salt their fields. Each raid repaid tenfold." "Ben," Crelin swallowed. "As you command." When the maester left, Tywin allowed agony to show in the hollows around his eyes. Leech's curse gnawed bone. He felt the red woman's whispers as if they combed marrow. Yet stubborn life burned, hot, bright. No sorceress could snuff a lion's fire. Once his leg mended, he would raise a host to break Stannis on the Trident, shatter the Kraken fleet. and wring the head from any dragon that dared cross his sky. Sails thrummed under dusk's violet veil as the silver fleet of House Targaryen tacked north of the Broken Arm. At the prow of Balerion's roar, Daenerys Stormborn watched gulls wheel above cresting waves, hair streaming like a banner of moonlit silk. To her left, Drogon rode thermals, wingspan vast enough to shadow half the deck when he dipped. Rhaegal and Viserion circled beyond, tails slicing contrails through the sky. Barristan Selmy approached, cloak snapping. "Your Grace." Scouts report Dornish patrol ships drawing near. Banners of House Jourdain and Fowler. They signal parley. "Benosmaren Tostan. Let them come." Her voice carried certainty wrought of flame. Dorne remembers dragons once. They will remember again. Below, the narrow sea rolled out like hammered smoke. Daenerys closed eyes, recalling Korth's betrayal, Astapor's cries, Meereen's uneasy peace. She felt Westeros calling, grass whispers of the Reach, pine hush of the north, salt roar of stormlands. Yet in her bones she also felt another call. A throne of blackened swords wielded by prideful kings. She turned to Barristan. "Has the Westerosi king bent?" "Reports differ," Selmy admitted. "Some say Stannis seeks truce. Others claim he prepares wildfire-lined scorpions upon city walls." Daenerys smiled without mirth. "Let him line walls with the sun itself. Dragons fly above." Suddenly Drogon shrieked, banking hard. A flight of ravens burst from clouds, scattering. One bird broke formation, diving toward the deck. It crashed at Daenerys' feet, wings mangled. A scroll tube bounced free. The queen knelt, stroked the raven's feathers until its final heartbeat ceased. She unrolled the parchment, recognized the seal. Martell Sunspear pierced by a bleeding heart. Prince Doran's hand wrote, "Your Grace, Sunspear's gates stand open. By midday 3 days. Hence the dragons may rest in our shadow. Yet know the shadows are lengthening. A red god's flame burns in King's Landing, and a lion's rage smolders at Casterly Rock. The north howls. Choose your first step with care. The sand is ever shifting beneath unwary feet." Daenerys folded the message. She looked up at Drogon silhouetted by the dying sun, wings crimson-edged, eyes pools of living ember. Sometimes she wondered whether her first step had already been chosen the day she rose from Khal Drogo's pyre, unburnt. All steps since might only be sparks along a fuse rushing toward unknown explosion. She whispered to the dragon, "We will answer the shadow with fire." In the neck, moist winds rattled reeds. A small iron cage dangled from a tree, inside which a Lannister scout coughed through cracked lips. Mira Reed knelt before him with a skin of water. "Tell me again," she said in quiet voice. "What banners ride behind Lord Tywin now?" "Too many," he croaked. "Crakehull hounds, Payne swords, Westerling stragglers. But they limp. The old lion's leg broken. Now it's shoe." Mira offered a sip. "And his daughter. Taken at sea. Greyjoys." From behind roots stepped Jojen Reed, eyes luminous with green dream trance. "Release him," he said. "His fate ends west." Mira nodded, cut the cage cord. The scout tumbled to mud, groaning before scampering into fog like a startled rabbit. Jojen watched him vanish. Threads tangle, sister. A storm of iron and flame divides the realm. Yet I cannot see which wind claims first blood. Mira cleaned her knife. "We hold the causeway. No army crosses while we breathe." "Not we now. Dragons fly above causeways," Jojen whispered. Tyrion stood on the balustrade of Maker's Holdfast as the King's Council assembled in the courtyard below. Stannis paced before 2 fresh-painted wagons bearing barrels stamped with crowned stag. Davos, Velaryon, Axel Florent, and Lord Caron flanked him. At signal, servants pried lids, grain spilled golden in sunlight. First distribution purchased with Braavosi coin, destined for Flea Bottom and outlying villages. This show of generosity mattered. Hunger bred rebellion faster than sermons curdled wine. Tyrion descended to join them, cloak swishing the dust of shattered tiles. "See," he whispered near Davos. "Bread, not fire." The Onion Knight eyed the waiting crowd. Gaunt women clutching children, lime burners, smith's apprentices. Even bread can choke if flavor sours. When Stannis Herald announced free grain, a ripple of disbelief stirred the air. Then cheers broke, timid at first, swelling as sacks were hoisted into wagons for distribution. Tyrion scanned faces. Suspicion lingered, but hope gleamed too. If dragons came, at least bellies would not be empty while city burned. After, Tyrion presented new ledgers to Stannis in the Solar. The Iron Bank extends further credit. On promise of Dornish alliance. They believe Prince Doran will join us if we stand before the dragons. Stannis thumbed pages. Dorne plays snakes and spears both, yet we need gold. And time, Tyrion said. The North's riders await roads hard enough for hooves. Winter snows will slow the lions. Cersei remains hostage. The Kraken fleet stalls bereft of a king. Dragons still sail. Delay is coin. Stannis' stare was like flint. Delay is cowardice. Tyrion met it. Delay is strategy. Fight when odds favor you, not when fire breathes at your gate. Ninja. A muscle twitched along Stannis' throat. Then he nodded, once. Have your coin. But know this, when the fight comes, I burn cowardice beside heresy. Tyrion bowed, hoping the king's zeal left room for pragmatism once skies filled with wings. That evening, Sansa joined Tyrion atop the garden terrace where lemon trees once perfumed the air before drought parched their soil. She cradled a candle in glass, flame dancing gold across haunted eyes. I wrote Robb another letter, she said. Told him I walk free within the keep, that no hand harms me. I thanked you. Tyrion looked into the candle, saw wildfire memory shimmer beneath its tame blaze. Hell know the difference between courtesy and cage. I cannot free you fully yet, but I can unlock most bars. She smiled, fragile as frost. The hound guards my door. He frightens nightmares away. He has that face, Tyrion allowed. They stood in silence while the candle fought brisk wind. Far below, temple bells tolled sunset prayer. Flames of Arlor's pyres flickered like fallen stars along the street of sisters. Sansa spoke softly. When dragons come, will walls matter? Walls matter to men who must hide behind them. And you? I prefer tunnels, Tyrion answered, surprising a short laugh from her. He savored the sound. It rang like chimes not heard, since innocence was a thing either of them could claim. 3 days later, Davos Seaworth sailed upriver, aboard a shallow draft sloop, ribs thrumming with urgency. A black leather satchel rested at his feet. Copies of the Pact of River Run, sealed by Stannis, countersigned by Robb Stark's envoys. His task: bring them before the Lords of the Trident, stir them against the lions before dragons drown debate in fire. Mid-journey night fell, moon hidden by wool-thick cloud. The helmsman steered blind past snags. Davos kept lookout on bow, lantern shuttered. A faint splash to starboard. He signaled halt. The river whispered around the hull, sounding to Davos like voices muttering beneath the current. He lifted the lantern's shade. Something bobbed. A man lashed to plank, features swollen, mouth agape. Sigil on his torn surcoat. Blackfish leaping red. Tully manned. Davos hauled him aboard with crew's help, pried lips for breath. Too late. Within clenched fist was stuffed a strip of crimson cloth bearing gold lion. Another splash. More bodies, tangled. A dozen, two, all Tully or Mallister, throats slit. Beyond them the riverbank gleamed with smoldering embers. A village razed. Over the charred palisade fluttered a banner. A flayed man, pink on russet. Bolton's again. Running raids beneath Lannister coin, or perhaps simply for sport. Davos felt rage twist his gut. He ordered the captain ashore, but the man balked. Too dangerous. Davos offered triple pay, unslung coin pouch, and together they drifted closer. Through the reeds, Davos watched shapes move, men stripping corpses, laughing. Among them strode a figure clad in mail of black quilt, bastard sigil on chest. A tall man with pale eyes and a mouth set in gruesome grin. Ramsay Snow. Davos' crew begged retreat. Davos agreed. The satchel had to reach River Run. Yet he memorized every twist of shoreline, every rock. Someday, he swore, the Onion Knight would bring justice where flayed skin now danced in torchlight. North of King's Landing, Robb Stark held council beneath a shattered Longhall's roof near Maidenpool. Rain pattered through broken beach beams onto maps, spread across a makeshift table. Galbart Glover, Maeg Mormont, and Great John Umber argued supply lines, while Grey Wind prowled wet shadows. A scout burst in, panting Conantain. "Your Grace." Riders approach, storm men bearing Stagheart. Robb signaled cease argue. Moments later, Davos entered, mud-splattered, satchel clutched. He bowed. "King in the North," he greeted, respectful, but equal. Robb offered him mead, motioned to sit. Davos declined. "No time. Riverlands burn. Bolton raids under Lioncoin. This pact binds our armies. Every hour wasted costs more skins." He placed parchment before Robb. Seals glistened. Robb read silently. The hall's hush thickened, until one could hear the rain's every drop. At last, Robb raised eyes. "Stannis grants northern freedom on victory, and demands your sword now," Davos said. "Together, we strike the lions, break their power before dragons arrive. Why should I bleed for another Southron king?" Great John thundered. Maeg Mormont growled. "Because wolves alone fall to Kraken on coast and flayed men in woods." Robb lifted hand. "I will march," but one term added, "Ramsay Snow's head on a spike before new moons rise." Davos bowed. "I'll bear it." And so banners stirred anew. From White Harbor sailed Manderley carracks, brimming with salted fish and slender spears. Across the cold barrowlands of the north, small folk lit beacons calling levies. At River Run, Edmure Tully wept at news of his slain scouts, then swore vengeance. The Stagheart and Direwolf entwined on parchment, now fluttered as cloth over every muster point along the Trident. In King's Landing, Tyrion received Davos Raven with shaky relief. He hurried to Stannis' audience chamber, found the king sparring with Sir Roland Storm, bastard of Nightsong. Blades clanged, sparks bounced on rushes. Tyrion waited until Stannis disarmed Roland with brutal parry, then cleared his throat. "The North marches," Tyrion announced, brandishing the Raven's ribbon. Their first demand accomplished. "Ramsay Snow to be captured and executed. I recommend swift compliance. Wolves hunger for their prey." "Namabim?" "Moi." Stannis flicked sweat from brow. "Let them catch the bastard. He slinks too nimble." Tyrion's smile held iron. "I have lured nimble creatures with cheese. We possess other bastards of Bolton blood in cells. Offer a trade." Stannis considered. "Do so." Weeks later, in a glen west of Stony Sept, Lord Roose Bolton broke camp. Ramsay's raids pleased him little. Chaos invites notice, and notice breeds peril. Yet messages from Tywin insisted on fear tactics to shatter river lords. Roose doubted a one-legged lion could command long. His own council whispered of allegiances more profitable. Perhaps the Red God's king, perhaps the Dragon Queen. A courier arrived with parchment sealed by Stagheart. Roose read it in torchlight. Offer of safe conduct to King's Landing. Invitation to prove loyalty by delivering Ramsay for judgment. In return, title of Warden of the North upon victory over Lannisters. Roose's pale eyes gleamed. He folded the parchment. "Send for my son," he told the guard. "Alive." At sea off Arbor's northern cape, Tyrell galleys formed formation around Pride of Highgarden. Mace Tyrell, grandly armored, addressed captains in council. Vassals urged alliance with Stannis, now that Stark treaty forged. Others counseled waiting until Dragon's intentions clear. Lady Olenna, sharp-tongued, dismissed half the arguments with one withering glare. "Sheep bleat of storms while wolves and lions devour them," she told Mace privately. "Choose a side quickly, before none remain for you to stuff your mouth." Mace fussed with plumes. "We might treat with the Dragon Queen." "Treat all you like. Just ensure she remembers who bakes bread, Olenna said. Dragons eat meat, but queens crave coin. As the sun set, the Tyrell fleet unfurled green rose sails and bore east, toward King's Landing for now. Their hold brimmed with grain and casks of sweet arbor gold. War, Olenna knew, was most often decided by who ate, not who bled. In the Red Keep that same night, Tyrion convened a secret meeting with representatives of the Faceless Men, disguised as spice merchants. Rumors claimed the guild had accepted contract on the Dragon Queen, commissioned by shadows unknown. Tyrion's instinct said Tywin, but coin might have come from others fearing fire. He poured wine. A Dragon Queen is difficult target. The tall Bravosi smiled thinly. All men are mortal. Dragons less so. We kill men, not monsters. Tyrion set goblet down. I would prefer the queen alive and negotiating rather than dead and martyred. Name your price to decline the contract. The Bravosi's eyebrows lifted. You ask us to betray a client? Strange business? I ask you to honor a higher fee, Tyrion said. He slid a velvet purse across the table. Inside glinted rubies pried from the crown Joffrey never wore. Consider it retainer. And consider further payments once King's Landing counts dragons as friends, not enemies. The faceless agent weighed the purse. We will deliberate. Tyrion watched him leave, heart racing. Deals within deals, each moment a twist deeper into webs unseen. But if he could forestall assassination attempts until diplomacy found purchase, perhaps Firestorm could transmute into alliance. After all, dragons once forged the realm. Maybe they could forge peace if guided by cunning hands. Autumn's first snow drifted over Winterfell's charred skeleton when Asha Greyjoy arrived with 50 spears under truce banner. She found the castle gates open, rebuilt timbers warding little except wind. Inside, northern folk labored to clear rubble. Bran Stark, pale and otherworldly, greeted her from a wicker chair pushed by Hodor. Beside him stood Jojen and Mira Reed. Asha knelt. I come to treat with the true-born heir of the North. Bran's distant gaze fixed on her. The Kraken took my brother, burned our home. Why should the North treat? Asha swallowed. My uncle rules Pike now, but I bring Queen Cersei as hostage. Coin for peace with Stannis and the Starks. No. Mira's spear tip lifted. Where is she? Asha gestured. Cersei, shackled and gaunt, yet eyes blazing, stepped forward in rough cloak. Snow dusted her cropped hair like ash. Bran's summer blue stare pierced her. What price for a lioness? Safe passage for my men. Recognition of Iron Island's autonomy under Queen Asha. Cersei hissed. Do not bargain my freedom to these children. Asha silenced her with a shove. Bran considered. The king in the north will decide. Until then, the lioness stays caged under Weirwood watch. He looked to Jojen. Send word to Robb. Cersei spat, but guards led her away. Hodor pushed Bran's chair toward the broken godswood, where saplings sprouted in ash-rich soil. Bran heard the trees whisper, leaves rustling secrets of roots and blood and snow, yet to fall. One name seemed carried on the wind. Snow, Jon Snow. Lost beyond the wall, maybe dead, maybe king of shadows. Bran closed eyes, slipped into raven skin soaring high above shattered towers, beyond fields where white blanketed earth. In the murmur of wings he sensed calamity stirring, cold as starless void, older than thrones or dragons. Thaward, the wall groaned beneath weight of fresh drifts. At Castle Black, bowmen drilled in courts while blacksmith Donal Noy bent over his forge, shaping a crude dragon-glass spearhead retrieved from ancient caches. Samwell Tarly watched sparks dance. Obsidian may shatter, he fretted. Steel shatters bones all same, Noy replied. But obsidian kills the cold things. We'll make as many as we've got rock for. A horn blew. One blast, then three. Men froze. 3 blasts meant others. But no icy shapes crested the rise. Instead, a lone rider on weary horse sagged forward. Jon Snow, cloak torn, face gaunt, slid from the saddle and crumpled. Rangers rushed, lifted him. On his chest they found a sigil, crowned stag heart sewn by wildling hands, Stannis' gift when he marched on the wall in another timeline that never came here. Jon's eyes fluttered open. Shadow. King. Dragons. He collapsed again. Maester Aemon bent frail body over him, fingers gentle. The realm burns while ice advances, he whispered. He looked south toward lands beyond the wall's shadow. Imagine dragons wheeling over Blackwater, and kings trading parchments, while ancient darkness sharpened claws. Back in King's Landing, Tyrion received word of Jon's return via New Raven Network. Davos helped extend. The note bore Maester Aemon's trembling script. The Dead Walk. We need fire unending. Tyrion sat long after reading, candle guttering. Dragons could answer that call. But first they must not scorch the realm to cinders. Balance on blade edge. He rose, summoned Podrick. Prepare riders. We ride to Storm's End at first light. The wall's cry must reach the king's ear. Sir, Pod asked. Storm's End? Not across sea to meet dragons. Storm's End sits on the sea's edge. Perhaps the dragons will meet us halfway. He sighed. And if not, we'll need thicker parchment. Night before departure, Tyrion visited Shay. She lay under woven blankets, eyes reflecting candlelight. He sat on edge of bed, took her hand. I leave tomorrow, he said. Dangerous road. She smiled sadly. Every road's dangerous for a dwarf who plays kings like dice. He brushed hair from her brow. When I return, perhaps we find quieter life. In a war of dragons, even dragons eventually roost. She squeezed his hand. Come back first. We'll plan roosts later. Dawn. Tyrion, Davos, and a retinue rode south along King's Road. Sansa watched from a tower slit, heart thudding with strange mix of fear and hope. The Hound stood beside her, arms folded. Hell survives, Sandor said. How do you know? Little leech won't let death cheat him of a good jest. Sansa hugged Shawl tighter. I pray the mother guides him. Pray to who you like, Sandor muttered. Just keep your knife handy. When hooves faded, King's Landing felt emptier, yet tension stronger, as if absence of its cleverest tongue left every other whisper louder. Sansa turned back into corridor, where shadows lengthened like claws. On the narrow sea, two fleets inched toward collision. Tyrell green roses tracing a coastal arc, Targaryen crimson driving northward. Between them storm clouds brewed purple and black. At their edges, Dornish Dramans hovered, sun spears ready to side with whichever wind blew hottest. Aboard Balerian's Aurora Daenerys convened war council. Daario Naharis argued swift strike on capital. Barristan counseled negotiation. Missandei translated murmur of allied sailors. Daenerys listened, weighed heart shelves of advice. Then Drogon landed on deck, dropping charred carcass of giant squid, sign from depths. Sailors recoiled. Daenerys knelt, stroked smoke-sooty scales. She rose, hair whipped by wind. We sail for Storm's End first. A castle seasoned by siege will serve as parley ground. Barristan bowed. Wise. The Baratheon seat may host peace between Baratheon pretender and Targaryen rightful. Daario smirked. Or it becomes the pyre on which he kneels. Daenerys let his jest blow away. Send ravens to King's Landing. Invite King Stannis to meet me beneath the walls of his birthright. Let the realm see two rightful bloodlines share counsel before sword. As sails trembled, lightning forked sea horizon, illuminating spray-wet wings. Somewhere beyond that line rode Tyrion toward Storm's End, scrolls and saddlebag schemes swirling like storm clouds overhead. At Storm's End, bastion of basalt against roaring sea, garrison commander Sir Eldon Estermont received two ravens the same hour, one bearing Stannis' seal, ordering preparation for royal arrival. The second sealed in wax, shaped like three-headed dragon breathing flames. Eldon read, paled, and ordered twice as many torches lit along ramparts. Grooms mucked stables, blacksmiths sharpened scorpion bolts, cooks slaughtered the last of Fall's fatted calves. The great hall echoed with hammers and hurried prayer. Yet some looked to sky with awe rather than dread. whispering songs of the Dragon Queen, brought south wind of change. Tyrion's party reached the castle on third day, cloaks soaked by gale-driven spray. As he dismounted in courtyard, a squire darted forth with sealed message. Dragon sigil. Tyrion cracked it. We arrive on dawn's crimson wing. He read twice. Felt thrill and chill cascade. Dawn. Scant hours away. He hurried to Solar where Stannis awaited, Lightbringer across knees, Melisandre beside hearth. Davos stood near shuttered window, face carved of concern. Tyrion handed scroll. Stannis read die. Silence thickened until Melisandre's voice pierced. Fire seeks fire. R'hllor's will convenes. Stannis stood. Prepare the yard. Let the queen land. Davos' brows shot up. You would parley here without archers perched. Let her dragons rest, Stannis said. If her intent is treachery, Storm's End's walls mean nothing. If peace, we stand as hosts. Melisandre's red lips curved. Peace paved with ash. Tyrion interjected, peace paved with gold and grain. Dragons may crave both. Stannis turned to him. You will greet the queen. Use that silver tongue to measure her fire. Nepian Toro. Tyrion bowed, though heart hammered. Dragons at dawn. He had survived wildfire. Perhaps he could parley dragonfire too. Night wind rattled arrow slits. Tyrion found no sleep. Instead, he roamed the ramparts counting stone merlons, memorizing vantage points. In a small alcove, he discovered Shireen reading by lantern, Patchface snoring nearby. She looked up, smiled. Lord Tyrion, she whispered. Do dragons truly breathe fire? Yes. He knelt. They also breathe change. Are you afraid? She touched her stone-scarred cheek. I dream they melt the grayscale away. He swallowed. Dragons do many wonders. Perhaps they heal as fiercely as they harm. Patchface stirred, muttering. The shadows come to dance, my lord. Dance, my lord. Tyrion rose. Sleep, princess. Tomorrow brings songs of wings. Dawn. The sea roared louder than usual. Waves blown high by onshore gale. Fortress yard filled with garrison ranks, banners snapping. Stannis stood at front, sword sheathed. Melisandre wore simple crimson shift, devoid of jewelry. Tyrion, wrapped in cloak bearing only neutral gray, positioned halfway between royals and landing ground. First came distant roar, deep, sonorous, beating through stone foundations. Then silhouettes emerged from rose-gold sky. 3 dragons gliding, wings sculling against wind. Sparks trailed their maws as they descended. Soldiers gasped. Some knelt. Others raised shields reflexively. Drogon touched down first, claws crashing onto outer bailey, flagstones cracking. His wings folded like titanic sails as he lowered neck, allowing Daenerys to dismount. Armor of supple black leather hugged her frame, scaled motifs catching early light. Rhaegal and Viserion circled overhead before perching on basalt outcrop beyond walls, eyes glowing like furnace coals. Daenerys strode forward, flanked by Barristan and Daario, her gaze fixed on Stannis. Neither bowed. Stannis spoke first. You trespass in Storm's End, seat of House Baratheon. Storm's End was built by Orys Baratheon for my ancestor, Daenerys answered. Voice clear over sea's tempest. We share blood of Aegon's line if distant. Shared blood does not grant shared crowns. Nor does wildfire, she retorted, glancing at Tyrion. I know who turned the Blackwater to Jade Hell. Tyrion inclined head. And who sailed through hell to claim victory? Victory for a throne parched by debt, she said to him. Then back to Stannis. I come to end feuds, not trade one usurper for another. Stannis' jaw clenched. The Iron Throne is mine by law and by God. Which gods? Daenerys asked softly. Old, new, or red? She let question linger. I do not demand the Iron Throne. I propose sharing rule. Murmurs rippled. Tyrion's pulse quickened. Damn, she plays the unexpected card first. Share? Stannis barked. 7 kingdoms split, she said. North has its king. Isles have kraken. Fire and ice threaten all. Divide burden. Stormlands and crownlands under Baratheon justice. Reach and riverlands for my counsel. Dorne remains free ally. Together we break lions and flayed men, then turn north to the true enemy beyond the wall. Davos stepped forward. True enemy? Daenerys raised arm. Drogon bristled. White Walkers stir. I received Raven from Eastwatch pleading for fire. Nitzal. Tyrion produced his copy of Aemon's note. The wall begs flame. Stannis stared at them both. I swore to defend Realm. Yet now Realm splits like rotten hull. Melisandre approached Drogon, eyes alight. Fire that walks. Arlor's great gift. The prince that was promised rides Dragon of Night. Daenerys regarded the priestess coolly. Promised prince? I am queen. Melisandre smiled. A light in darkness may bear any shape. Barristan's hand drifted to sword hilt. Tension crackled. Drogon growled. Smoke curling. Rhaegal beat wings in agitation. Soldiers raised spears. Stannis' fingers closed on Lightbringer's grip. Tyrion stepped between monarchs, palms up. Your graces, common cause, unites us, or ash will be all that remains for any crown. Dragons cannot roast winter. No king can tax dead men. We must stand together. Daenerys studied him. You speak like one who has felt both fire and ice. I have, he said simply, thinking of Wildfire's kiss and father's frost. Stannis exhaled rough. You propose joint rule, yet bring dragons against my gate. I bring them a shield, she said. Their fire can hold winter's darkness. Their wings can scour flayed banners. Their fear can drive lions to heel. Fear buys no loyalty, Davos murmured. Nor does stubborn pride, Tyrion added. Stannis' gaze flitted across faces. Davos' earnest plea. Melisandre's hungry certainty. Tyrion's cautious hope. Daenerys' unflinching steel. He drew Lightbringer, but planted tip into flagstones. A gesture, neither hostile nor yielding. Parley continues, he declared. Under guest right dragons shall feed, but not fly above my walls. Tomorrow, we draft terms. The day after, we ride north with combined host. Damn. Daenerys' inclined head. Agreed. She turned, stroked Drogon's neck. The dragon settled, but kept molten eyes on Melisandre. Storm's End exhaled, as if the fortress itself sighed in relief. Soldiers lowered spears. Sailors on parapet cheered uncertainly. In that fragile moment of suspension, Tyrion felt world rearrange. Pieces sliding into new alignment. Perhaps ephemeral, perhaps epochal. He allowed himself a breath, then another. Heavy rain clouds parted, letting a single spear of sunlight gild the courtyard, catching on the steel of Lightbringer and the black scales of Drogon, until both weapons glowed alike. Tyrion squinted against brilliance, wondering whether the gods, old or new or red, marked this hour with approval or amusement. Night after parley, a hooded figure crept along outer wall of Storm's End, crossbow slung to arm. He climbed parapet, knocked bolt tipped in thin glass vial of pale green liquid, concentrated wildfire stolen from alchemist cache. He drew bead on Daenerys' silhouette, standing alone by sea tower. Finger tightened. A hand closed on his wrist, twisting. Pain shot. Bolt clattered. Sandor Clegane grunted, yanked assassin into moonlight, revealing shaved head, Braavosi coin tattoo behind ear. Faceless. Sandor slammed him into battlement. Wrong castle, he snarled. With one massive fist, he crushed vial. Green fire licked air, spewing wisp of smoke. Assassin's eyes widened before Sandor hurled him over wall, into surf, far below. Daenerys turned, startled. Sandor offered terse nod, returned to shadow. She watched waves swallow faint green flicker, wondering what foes would next test fragile truce. From a balcony, Tyrion witnessed the scuffle. He made mental note. His rubies bought at least one cancellation, but another client still hunted. He would triple the fee tomorrow. In war, coin killed Ashura's swords, And sometimes, he reflected, coin might yet save. Beyond the wall that same dawn, Jon Snow woke in infirmary. Ghost lay at bedside, fur whiter than fresh snow. Maester Aemon sat nearby. "Tell me," Aemon urged. Jon spoke of Hardhome ravaged, of wights in thousands, of others leading them, icy crowns, pale swords. He spoke of a horn found in ancient tomb, carven with swirling runes, said by wildlings to wake giants and bring down walls. He brought the horn in saddlebag. It rested now on table, a thing of black bone, cracked but cold to touch. Aemon traced runes blind fingers could not see. Fire may drive them back, but the wall was built for reason. Jon's gaze framed fear. If horn truly shatters it, then dragons must soar the wall's length before horn sounds. Jon swallowed. Dragons. Aemon smiled ruefully. Yes, my boy. And perhaps men of ice and men of fire will stand shoulder to shoulder at world's edge. In the deep hours before dawn, Tyrion drafted new accord. Dragons bound by pledge not to torch cities without council consent. Baratheon armies to garrison north roads. Targaryen fleet to patrol sea lanes against Kraken revival. Combined force to march on Casterly Rock after winter threat contain. He left blank space for signatures, wax, and witness seals. When quills slackened, he stepped to window. Far horizon glimmered silver where moonlight struck restless water. He thought of Shae safe in King's Landing, of Sansa watched by Hound, of Cersei snarling in chains within Winterfell's half-rebuilt halls. He thought of Tywin nursing shattered leg, plotting vengeance, of Roose Bolton sharpening betrayal. Each piece moved unseen even as board reset. He whispered to the night, one more roll of the dice. Behind him, faint rumble vibrated stone. Dragons shifting on roost. Ahead, the surf hammered cliffs with relentless drums. Between fire and water sprawled a realm hanging by quills and promises. Tyrion Lannister, who had once imagined himself small, now felt the weight of crowns pressing on his shoulders like anvils. He squared them as best a dwarf could and set the ink to dry.